Yeah,
Ah,
what's up, man?
perfect. It works. It actually works.
Word. How
Yeah.
you doing, man?
Uh, I'm doing well. I just put the kid to bed, and I was fighting to stay awake myself. I was like, man, I can't be that guy going to sleep at 7:30. So,
Hey, man, especially if I'm not a parent, but I have friends and family that are, and I work with kids, so I know, man, like they could take a lot out of you. Like,
well,
sometimes it's like,
I'm up every day at 6 a.m. anyway because I gotta, I'm 7 days a week with jujitsu, so I
ooh,
gotta get up early, man. So if I'm up at 5:30, I don't go back to sleep. Just get ready to get to the gym and then train for a couple hours. And she trains with me on Saturday and Sunday, so
wow,
you know,
that's
it,
dope. That's really cool, man.
yeah, yeah,
Man,
yeah.
how many years have you been going with that? I know I asked you, I know that I asked you about that on the last interview, but when did you really start getting into that, and like how long have you been going? Like how many years, and do you feel
Well,
like you learned something new every?
Well,
Sorry.
the funny thing is, I've been going through because I'm moving, so I got a whole bunch of my stuff that I'm packing away, and I found some pictures of my oldest daughter who just turned 28, and
Wow.
she took her first steps at a place I used to train. So that means I've been doing this at least 28, 29 years now. But in the early stage, for the first 10 years, I kept losing coaches, more than 10 years. Coach, I'm moving to Florida. I'm going here. So it was hell, and it wasn't until I found this guy Leopoldo Serral, and I've been with him since 2011 or maybe
Huh.
2010. So technically, officially, I've only been studying that long, minus whatever a year and a half of COVID. But I started doing 7 days a week at getting up at 6 in the morning when I was working at Ozzy, because as soon as Ozzy figured out that I was using my lunch break to train, they started scheduling meetings during the lunch break just to keep me from training. So I was like, you know what? I'm gonna show up for that 6 a.m. class because there's no business at 6 a.m. None, unless you're dealing with Europe, and somebody else is probably gonna do that when I was at Ozzy. So
That's crazy that they would do something like that. That's weird.
Well, that's why my former boss, the fraudster Carlos Watson, is going to prison for 10 years. That was just the tip of a much more gooned out iceberg. And what's funny to me is now he's doing all this. We had like African American celebrities who, when they get popped, suddenly become African American again, like OJ and like my fraudster boss went on Charlemagne the God show and was like, the man is after me. It's like you have just become a Negro. Where the fuck you been for the last 10 years? Stop it. So so
Man.
they got him. He got, and now I can train whenever I want. But I realize that the guys that come who wake up at 6 to train from 7 to 9, these are the real ones. you know, they're going to work after, right? So they don't want anybody to interfere with their training. They don't want to miss. So and I've been to different classes, lunchtime classes. The kind of guys who smoke a lot of weed, they gotta roll in late. Evening classes, the guys are just, desperate to get home and trying to morning class, you got the real one. So yeah, that's what I've been doing.
Would you see that more as a meditation or just something that's like, like how would you see that? Like, you have cats that, like I have friends that like one of my friends is a fourth way cat and he does Gurdjieff movements. Then I have cats, I mean, like have friends that are Sufis and I don't know if they whirl. I've never asked them about that.
Yeah.
And then other cats that do yoga and stuff. Would you see that as kind of the same thing or is it something completely different?
You have to, in my mind, is the benefits of those things are practice something that you do regularly, routinely, and that doesn't require a lot of um, extra thought.
Mm.
Um, whether it's, you see these old people 90 years old in the park doing Tai Chi or something like that. I really think that the discipline that's involved in making sure that you can, I think it's super important. And I like that aspect. I mean, I'll tell you, I'll be the first to tell you, my jujitsu sucks. but, but, you know, uh, heavyweight champion Cain Velasquez once said to me after we rolled together, he said, the reality of it is the more you do it, the better you get. And so what I think sucks probably for the average person is great. But I'm not looking for average person stuff. I want it to be, I'm looking for mastery of the discipline, So, and I don't know. I mean, the reality of it is that, you know, a bouncer friend of mine once said to some guy he was throwing out, he goes, "See, you gotta get ready. I've been ready." And so that's from my point of view, growing up in New York in the '70s, it's like I don't want to have to get ready. I want to be ready. So,
Well, speaking of ready, I'm ready to introduce you.
Yeah, oh yeah, do it up, man.
I don't care if I did it before. I'm gonna do it again.
No, no, do it. I'm glad to have you do it.
Man, welcome back to Black History of Rock and Roll, Eugene. You've done so much, and for all that don't know and all that do, you guys know that. So I'm going to introduce this brother, musician, journalist, martial artist, author, who's written books such as Everything That You Wanted to Know
Everything
About
everyone
Ass
about ass
Kicking.
kicking, or afraid you get your ass kicked for asking.
Thank you. Yeah, because
You were gonna massacre it, so I saved you.
Yeah. That's the longest title that I've ever heard of a book. That's got to have a world's record, by the way.
Well, you know what? I submitted it as a joke, and they let me get away with it. I was shocked. I had no idea they would go for it.
Man. And then the long, slow screw. Is that a Swans thing, or like did you take that from? I'm
Yeah,
curious.
yeah, it was, and I contacted Gira because you can't copyright a title, right? So I contacted Gira anyway and just said, "Hey, by the way, I'm going to use this as a title for my book." He's like, "I don't give a shit what you do." I was like, all right, salty mouth."
I know you know him,
Yeah,
so it's like
yeah,
I was like curious. It's like I wonder who I was curious about that. So yeah.
Well,
And also,
the first few times that we talked on the phone, he cursed me out and hung up the phone on me, and then he called me back and was screaming. I mean, I just had to laugh, and then the time we finally met in person, he had sobered up and was no longer drinking and was very polite and kind, and we got along quite nicely. So,
dang,
yeah.
what a trip, man. Man, so we got that book and also your latest, A Walk Across Dirty Water and Straight into Murderer's Row, which is your latest
Yeah.
book that you came out with
Yeah.
in late 2003, right? I mean 2023.
Yeah, no, last October, man. I think it was, I want to say October 2024. I could be
Oh,
wrong. Oh, I could be wrong. I think I'm wrong. You're right. It was October 2023.
man. So how's that been going, man? Like how's everything been going like since the last time I talked to you? I know some things, but I'm gonna let you I know you have a tour coming up, which we're gonna plug on here too, and there's some other changes that have happened. Let me let's get that update.
Well, Buñuel got a new record coming out called Mansitude. Well, coming out. It's out. That's been out since October, November, and we just released 2 days ago we have 4 videos for this record. The first video, it was a sponsorship or a co-branded, whatever they want to call it in marketing terms. It was an exclusive for Roadburn Festival because we're playing Roadburn this year. So Buñuel is playing Roadburn this year. Roadburn said, "Hey, let us debut your video." So the video for the song "Drug Burn" is up now, and I mean, Anna Paula Martin is a great. She had done a video she had done for Killers Like Us 2 or 3 Buñuel videos, and then she distinguished herself, came out and did a video for Oxbow's last record, Love's Holiday. And then she did 4 for the new Buñuel record. So the first one is already out now. You can see it. And then we went over to Basque Country to film the other 3. So those are coming out, I think, in time for the April tour. So we're going to tour 4 shows in Italy next week. Then we're going to do April, like 2 weeks in April in Europe, and then 2 weeks in the States come sometime in the summertime. And at which point, which is strange because I'll be a resident of Spain at that point. I'm leaving America, building a house, and the house is finished. I'm taking possession of it in December. but they're still putting gewgaws and stuff in, and the interior design has to be finished, and so but I'll be out of here in June, out of the States in June. So so I'll be touring here in America as a non-resident, which is kind of amusing. But I think you were referring to the end of Oxbow, which happened in summertime of 2024, and that was a sad event. But I mean, my idea is that the name of the band is just a brand item. Like when I go to the store and ask for toilet paper, if they give me sandpaper, I'm going to be pretty angry. But as long as I'm making music, what do I care whether it's Buñuel or Oxbow or Mangin? It's a electronica project that I did out of Berlin.
Huh.
Me and Manuel Liebskin, and that's pretty phenomenal. It's not, if you've listened to me for the last 20, 30 years, it's completely unlike almost everything else I've done. So I'm trying to get my head around getting a new type of agent for it, a new type of manager, and playing different type of shows, because I know next to nothing about electronica, but Manuel does. So yeah, I've been busy. I've been busy like a bee here. So it right now I'm scattered trying to remember like everything. So I mean, it's only 4 shows. I'm not necessarily going to blow up, but you never know. I got to bring the right merch. I got good to remind myself. I got to bring my special microphone, and so I'll be fine. It should be fun.
Wow. As far as like, I have two questions. One about the electronic. Was that the one? Did you guys cover "I Put a Spell on You" by Screaming Jay Hawkins?
Uh,
Was that the one?
No, that's Fushima Records out of Ohio, and that's my man Jimmy Israel, and he started a record label. He's doing quite well. He had me do that, and he wants me to do another song, and he's building a label from the ground up. And it's not his main method of employ, but he's a solid cat. He used to write for me when I was at Code magazine, that men's fashion magazine, and then. When he got on the come up, he got me on the barbershop with Michelle Martin on NPR, and he put out a book on the Denzel principle. He wrote a back cover blurb for my for memoir, and so that's Fushima Records. That was pretty fun. And then the other odd thing that came out of the implosion of Oxbow was a record label out of Atlanta called Acolyte, AKOLITE. They want me to do a standards record. So I've recorded 3 or 4 songs. It's like I Gotta Be Me, Sammy Davis's version of I Gotta Be Me. Fever, not Peggy Lee's version of Fever, which everybody knows, but there was an R&B version of Fever. So that was pretty cool. And they brought me through about a year and a half ago to sing some with Nikki Hill and me to sing some songs on Jim Jones All Stars, the guy from the Hypnotics. And that was pretty cool. We did a Jimmy Castor and the Funky Bunch cover of Troglodyte.
Yeah,
Uh, and
yeah,
yeah,
that song is
no,
dope.
Bertha Butt would have been my pick, but
Oh,
but
my grandma liked that song.
yeah, that was a great song. But, Betty, Bella, people, come here, I need you. It's a great song, man. So, so yeah, I've been, idle hands are the devil's playground. I've been as busy as I could possibly be. So,
Man, if you don't mind me asking, especially about the Oxbow thing, did the group just break up or did you just leave? Because I remember I stumbled up on like an article. It says that you left after 35 years, and I was like, wow, I just found this out. Like when doing more, I try to update my research a bit, as much as I can. I'm not saying that I'm the best at it, but I try. And then I'm like, wow, dude, I didn't know. And if
well,
you don't mind me asking, like after 35 years, if it's too personal, just let me
well,
know. Like, what was your reason for that?
it wasn't my issue, right? I mean, if you were to follow the chronology, I was waiting for allegations were made about bad behavior on the part of the guitarist Nico Winter, and he released a statement after I had released my Substack announcing my leaving the band. Ideally, what would have happened is he would have released his statement first, and relieving me of the onus of having to leave the band. But they weren't doing that. So like Dr. Dre once said, if there's a, when describing him leaving death row, he goes, sometimes you're at a party and you don't feel comfortable being at the party, so you just leave. And that's largely what I had to do. I mean, it was my group. I shouldn't have to quit my group, but it was a weird kind of, there were allegations, and it's between him and the people who made the allegations, but the approach to it was a little too casual for me, which is why I did the Substack. And I think I gave about 10 days before I said, if you hear about something horrible happening under the aegis of Oxbow, they're not going to think it's a guitar player. It's suddenly, after 38 years of doing music, I kind of am aware of the fact that maybe some of the people I was making music with have forgotten that we're living in two different types of worlds. Um, I got the wife, kids, family, and I actually have spent a lot of energy and time not being an asshole, despite the fact that I'm beating people up at shows on odd occasions. In general, like AC/DC once said, I'm trying not to shoot anybody that's not carrying a gun. There are no there are no with me, there are no innocent victims. There are no innocent victims. And that I felt I kind of got my feelings hurt that everybody was casual about. Well, not everybody, but at least half the band was casual about, oh, let's take some time. It'll work itself out. I go, no, no, no. This is a new world. My whole MO is disclose, divulge, disclose, and own up to the shit. Move ahead, but they were not of the mind to do that. So then I forced a hand by putting out the Substack, and then there was a statement released, largely saying what I said about allegations. So
Yeah. Well, hey, man, I know you're forging onto some great things. You've been involved in a lot of different things going on. Like even when you were in Oxbow, you've always kept busy. I mean, there's
yeah,
probably so much that I don't know, and I've tried to catch up. I need to even update on stuff that I found out even after what I wrote about you. Um, and I know you're from what I also Marianne Faithful. You knew her, right? I
yeah,
think
yeah.
didn't you guys do a song about together? Or
We
you
did.
guys?
She appeared on two Oxbow songs. One you can barely hear her, and it's all, but both are on Serenade in Red. And the second was the hidden cut on Serenade in Red. So it comes. It's way. You have to listen to the whole record, and it was a long space. You think the record's over, and then it comes up, and it's called Insylum, which is short for Insane Asylum, the Willie Dixon song. And so, yeah, we had to fly over to Dublin to do it because she couldn't get into America because of the drug bust that she had to deal with, But it wasn't America that did it. I got her a cheap ticket through Canada, and the Canadians were like, "Nah, we're not letting you in, and we're sending you back home," which is kind of shit. I'm sure. I mean, they did that with a lot. It still happened. I remember well after, like, one of the Beatles was having a hard time getting to Japan because they had tried to get weed into Japan. Just governments are weird. So we did go to Ireland to do it, and that was a great time. What irked
Wasn't
me
she also?
what
I'm
irked
sorry.
me endlessly was to watch Metallica later on, like the Headbangers Ball, and they said, "Oh, that's a great song you've done with Marianne Faithful. Where'd you get the idea?" And they kind of all of a sudden like stuttering and muttering, and then said, "Oh, our manager came up with that idea." And it's like, come on, man, manager who's friends with Oxbow's bass player? You mean that guy? Like a bone like that would have been nice to throw our way, like, oh, Oxbow did sound like cool. We decided to jump on. I mean, Nick Cave, he doesn't know me from well, we did a show together, so he did kind of know me from Adam, but in the case with Metallica, I thought, like, come on, bro, you just give a little dap, come on. So, but anyway,
Yeah.
it was great. It was great working with her, and I was saddened by her death. But she had been health problems for a long time. I mean, I wanted to make the Substack a little bit longer to go into the underpinnings of her death, which is like, and I know it's icy to talk about this stuff, but I remember, I'll give you an example of what I mean. Naomi Watts, the actress, was talking about how right before she got cast by David Lynch, she was suicidal. She had come to Hollywood and was expecting things to work her way, and things weren't going her way, and she was literally thinking about killing herself. And she tells the story, and in telling the story, she says, "So I was talking to my friend Nicole Kidman. I was like, whoa, wait! You come to LA to make it. You're so not making it. You're suicidal, and you got a friend in Nicole Kidman, and she's not helping. I'm just too much of a New Yorker, man. I like patronage. I help you, you help me. You help me, I help you. So the fact that like she was living on the street in dumpsters for a period of time, the drugs got on top of her, and she's friends with Jagger and Richards and all these people. It's like, yo, help out. And then somebody said to me, yeah, if somebody's got a drug problem, you can't help them out. We gotta give them money. You give them money, gonna spend it on drugs. Okay, yeah, there is that argument. There is that argument. But at the same time, they had many years when she wasn't on drugs where they could have helped, and they did nothing. So
That's
I enjoyed
sad.
I enjoyed working with her, and I am saddened by her passing though.
Didn't you have her on one of the early zine compilations that you put out? Of the one, how could I forget what that is? And we talked about it in the last interview. So sorry. That you had oh my gosh, you had Lydia Lunch on the same compilation.
Oh,
Um,
you talk about Fear, Power, God, the spoken word compilation,
yeah,
or the Birth of Tragedies? No, she wasn't on that.
it's
Lydia
a
was.
tragedy.
Yeah, and I could only get Marion. We only had that one meeting in Ireland, and I could only get her to do the 2 songs that she did. We had other plans, but it's just And then of course Nick Cave and Metallica got in there, and she had kind of a minor revival. But listen, there was a point at which Anton LaVey from the Church of Satan hadn't talked to anybody for years. He goes, "You're all jive. You only come and talk to me when the Halloween is here because you just need that. Fuck you guys. I'm not talking to the press anymore." Well, he agreed to talk to me, and all of a sudden, like the Adam Parfrey at Farrell saw the interview that I put out in my little magazine, the Birth of Tragedy magazine, and even though LaVey had been talking to me about re-releasing their stuff, which would have been a financial, and I'm not a Satanist, but it would have been a financial boon for me. Parfrey poached him. And I thought, okay, all's fair. That's fine. And when they finally put out Apocalypse Culture, one of the versions, first the second version, first the first one, he gave a tip of the hat. He said, this is where we didn't know where this guy was. He was in mothballs, read the Birth of Tragedy interview with Eugene Robinson, and we decided to revive this guy's career. And I was like, okay, that's all I want. I don't want money. I just want a little mention. Metallica just say, hey, we got the idea from Oxbow. Hey, just little love, little love.
Yeah,
But
plus, they're from the same place you guys are from. Like, well, I mean, I know James and a lot of those guys came from LA, but they were up in San Francisco for a long time.
yeah, I
Yeah,
used to see him on the street and going to shows at the On Broadway. Tiny, much tinier than I would have expected. Him and Axl Rose are actually physically tiny guys. Oh, I'm 6'1.5" at 225 pounds, so maybe it's perspective. But I didn't expect him to be that small. But yeah, whatever, man. I'm happy to have worked with her.
man. And yeah, memory eternal to Marian Faithful, man. I thought I would bring her up because I know that you worked with her. Now, speaking of music, I had some questions
Good.
because all these it's gonna sound silly. I'm from I mean, it's some punk rock stuff, man. I ain't gonna lie to you. Um, there's this issue that I've been seeing with a lot of these youth and then some of the older punk rockers, and I feel like I don't really have a say on it because I guess my era of punk rock was after the classic period.
All right.
Here's some questions on that. Punk versus hardcore. Did you consider punk a part of hardcore earlier on or apart from it earlier on or both?
Punk part of hardcore. Well, no. I mean, for a long time, it was all punk, right? and then probably in '82, hardcore was starting to get was its own thing at that point. And a couple of things had happened. One of the things that happened is that the cats who had been flying high in 1977, you know, when Blondie got signed, the Talking Heads got signed, yeah, you know, there was money aflow. They kind of, and then the labels were like, well, look, punk is dead. It had its time, you know, this Sex Pistols. Today is actually the anniversary of, I think, Sid Vicious dying. You know,
Man.
and so it was easy to say that punk was dead, but punk wasn't dead. You know, it had gone to places where people who didn't have any aesthetic credibility, they thought were making it, right? Like, I mean, people don't know this, but Black Flag and their audience, the beach community guys from Long Beach, Hermosa Beach, all the, you know, those
I'm from
Huntington,
Long Beach.
all those guys were like, the Hollywood crowd looked down on them. They were like rubes. They were rustics. They were like animals, Philistines. And same in New York, man. And it didn't, I was there to see on a Process of Elimination tour at Irving Plaza. And the cats from Ohio came out. The Necros were playing. Guys from DC came. And they stood in the middle of the dance floor and said, New York sucks. And I'm a New Yorker. I go, fuck you. And the guy looks at me and he goes, show me I'm wrong. And I look up, and in the balcony, there was like the last vestiges of like the old punk, like guys I remember from shows at CB's in 77, 78. And they just aged out, man. They just were not, you know, these cats who were probably, okay, so I'm in 1981, 82, I'm 19, 18, 19. These guys had been like 26, you know, guys who, I mean, all the 1977 crew, all those guys were playing Max's Kansas City, Dick Manitoba, you know, midway between the New York Dolls. They were all older guys at that point, and they were not about to get in any.
Oh
We used to say they
man.
weren't about to thrash at all at that point. So, you know, New York, of course, kind of had followed the punk rock. Guys like Vinny Stigma, who was maybe 6 years older than me, had already been in the punk rock thing and thought that was going to be big. And then hardcore came, and credit is never given. Not enough credit's due. It all goes to Penelope Spheris, man. Decline of Western Civilization was the first mass media kind of treatment of let the world see what
Ooh,
hardcore
you're
was.
cutting.
And I have to say I was happy for that because now pogoing is exhausting. It's like jumping rope. Yeah, you know, I got to jump rope for some of my training, man, but I hate it. It's tough to jump rope, and you know, what they used to call back then slam dancing, thrashing, or moshing. That was a lot easier ultimately than pogoing. So I was sort of happy for it, and and hardcore was much less about cool or a certain type of cool than punk rock had always been cool, and I felt fairly marginalized because I just wasn't doing the cool thing, man. If you were to get a picture of me from 1977, 78, I mean, the extent of my punk rock finery in a fashion sense was like, I look like Travis Bickle. And that wasn't accidental. That was quite purposeful. You know, I was a big fan of Taxi Driver and decided like that's the look. I mean, sans the mohawk because I was also a disco dance instructor. So I had to hit the discos on Saturday night. If I wasn't doing the punk rock thing, I was at Studio 54 or Xenon or New York, New York for those old heads who remember those clubs. Um, so yeah, so punk rock became hardcore, and a lot of punk rockers never came back. You know, I mean, there's some interesting ones. Like if you take who's that guy who the Voidoids,
Richard Hell.
Richard Hell, thank you. Richard Hell, he was a punk rocker and he never quite made it to hardcore, but he still had cachet, right? I mean, he's also not still playing shows. I think he's gone ahead and written some books and some such thing. But you had bands that who made the transit from punk rock to hardcore, but not really many. More of them were UK, right? Like if you talk about UK subs, they made the transit. Um, made like the Damned. They made the transit. You know, they were there. 77, 78. So, but I mean, we're talking, this is weeds. This is stuff in the weeds. Largely, they're the same. Excuse me, they're the same fucking thing.
It's so weird because like when I got into, I, sorry, I didn't know what hardcore was when I first heard it. I was in elementary, but then like this is like 87, 88, 89. I started watching Flipside Video, and then K Rock would play stuff like that, but I didn't know it was hardcore until the late 80s. You
Yep,
know, then I started watching Flipside Video and stuff like that,
yep.
and then I started going to shows in the 90s. But it was weird because it was still hardcore punk to me. These kids today don't really call it punk. They and it's funny when you see things online. I don't really I take certain things with a grain of salt, but at the same time it almost is like a microcosm of what some of these youth are thinking today. They separate hardcore from punk totally. And me and a friend of mine, my skinhead buddy, from that grew up with me, we were like, when did hardcore like not become punk? I mean, like for me, even and I guess my era was some sort of after the classic period. I'm gonna ask you a question about that too, but I still like for me when I got into hardcore, I still have my head shaved. I had the Liberty spikes. I had my eyebrow shaved. You know, jack boots on and like like flannel tied behind my waist, safety pins. I'm still a
Yep,
punk rocker. You know, like
yep.
I didn't know it was just like the whole youth crew thing was just staple now. You know, like it wasn't really even then transferring to from the 80s to the 90s. We were still a lot of us still looked like punks. Not everybody was wearing a hoodie and like and even if we shaved our heads, we're still have graffiti clothes on and like our shirts ripped and all that stuff.
Yeah,
So it's kind of
but it
weird.
gave
And then
this weird kind of tribalism, man, where like, there was people who still proclaim themselves as punks, but were in the hardcore, but then they shaved their heads and they were skinheads and they were listening to Oi. And it's just like, you know what, man, punk, as far as I'm concerned, is a superset, and these are all subsets. And you can talk whatever, you do what you want. I mean, at this point, we are multiple generations from its creation. So if the guys I know who I saw, at those shows at CB's in '77, were few and far between that are still around. Harley, I remember him. At one of the first shows I saw him and the Stimulants with his aunt Denise, and I remember I must have been about 16, so he must have been about 11. I was like, what is that kid doing on the drum set? This kid, I'm wasting my time. What am I doing? Just going to school now? How come he's out? He should be home in bed somewhere. So he was the first one there. Ira, who is in that matinee book by my I got the book around here. Drew Carolyn, his book matinee. And Ira is dead. I found out now, so I don't know how he died. But so there were like five guys. Jack Rabbit, who was there in like 77, 78, but there weren't many. And then of course the generation, say youth of today. Youth of today, I completely slept on because, as far as I was concerned, one, they were from Connecticut, and two, they were like third generation, hardcore guys. I was like, the kids don't give a fuck about them. And of course, years later, it was like, how did I sleep on these guys? I mean, I was a big SSD fan, and I thought they kind of like borrowed some stuff from SSD. I got it. But then I actually listened to them more like, fuck, they were so good. I regret having ignored them. So, but
great
at this,
band. I don't know why
some
this is
Fat
freezing.
Records in the early
Ah,
days. You all right?
all this you were kind of freezing, so I'm like, oh, I'm shaking my
Oh
phone.
no! I tried to get Oxbow signed to Fat Records before Fat Records had a real, strict identity. And Fat Tony was like, "Yeah, you're not punk enough." I was like, "What are you fucking talking about? What are you?" And then I remembered. I figured out. Oh, punk has become a thing. It's like a thing. I got it.
Man,
Okay, all right. So yeah, Oxbow is no longer. Is it become like, I want to go to a store? I want to get toilet paper. I don't want to get sandpaper. I know what. As far as that is, in my mind, it was all about approach. But okay, I understood. I understood that people were using words differently. So
that brings up my next question. It's kind of even has something to do with Whipping Boy, versus, I don't even say versus, or transferring the oxbow. Question, and it's kind of a two-parted question because I've heard different theories. Like I said, I got into hardcore in the very late 80s and early 90s. But this is some of the theories. Hardcore, what do you think the classic hardcore period was? I got three different ones. 1979 to 1982. And it's interesting you mentioned 82. 1979 to 1986, I could understand why people would say all of this. Or 1979 to 1990. What would you say the classic hardcore period was? And even when it comes to like, especially like around the time that you form Oxbow, that seemed like a period where a lot of bands were kind of just doing different things, whether they were crossing over, to more metal or just kind of doing what Husker
Yep.
Du did, or like
Yeah.
doing the post-hardcore stuff, like around between 84 and 86, right?
Yeah,
Um,
I'm going to take the second choice you gave. I think the second choice is more accurate because my temptation is to say 79 to 82, but that's not the case, man. There were interesting things that started to happen because you got to figure like Minor Threat guys, Minor Threat's last show was somewhere at 82. And then, there was the creation of Fugazi and everybody who had been in since 79. Um, it was weird, man. I was in a place where, I mean, keep in mind, I did technically Whipping Boy is still a concern. In actual fact, I got a Whipping Boy reissue coming out this year,
whoa.
which is a second Whipping Boy record, Muru Muru, which of course was no kind of hardcore record at all. It was remixed by Joe Ciccarelli, and we're releasing it under the name Disillusion. Um, but DYS Illusion, and which is not a tribute to the band DYS. Not that, but it was everybody was kind of like, what do we do, right? And as we got into the 80s, what I was doing with Whipping Boy was starting to be much less satisfying to me emotionally, right? Like, okay, America Must Die, given where my head was in 1980, made a lot of sense. It still makes a lot of sense, but at this point, my concerns had grown increasingly personal, and I wanted a format where I could show them that didn't involve 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4. And so I think we were touring with Des Cadena's band DC3, and we're going through Seattle, and some guy like gave me a Malfunction tape, and I'm like, oh, weird shit, new kind of cool shit is happening. Soundgarden,
Ooh, this thing is freezing.
the dude is were like our roadies for the time we played in Seattle, and I started listening to it. So people were like, oh shit, this could actually, a couple of things. I could actually do the music that meets the dictates of my soul, and there's an audience for it. Scratch Acid, right, became Jesus Lizard. Minor Threat became Fugazi. I mean, it's not strict. They're different members, but these things kind of evolved into comfortable places. And it didn't bother me at all that there were still people doing traditional hardcore. That made sense to me. I had no interest in doing it. And my right toward the end when CB's was closing, I went to some shows there, and I could see it in the photos. I must have been 84, 83, 84, and I was watching Reagan Youth play. Dave Insurgent was singing. You can see me standing there backstage, and I can feel. I look at the photo like I'm in that place, but no longer of that place. If that makes it
I
happened
understand.
in the and Whipping Boy tour number 2 or 3, and the drummer Dave Owens, who is now a professor at Vanderbilt, he put in a tape that his sister had given him, and it was a birthday party. And we're driving, and I was like, "What the fuck is this?" And he was like, "No, it's his birthday party and this is thing." And I was like, "Where does it, what has happened to your head? We even come up with?" And I was completely taken and absorbed into And then at the same time, Rollins was sending me tapes with Diamanda Gallis on it and Einstürzende Neubauten and Swans. He goes, "You got to listen to this." When people used to make tapes and said it. Rollins said, "I'm gonna make you a tape," made a tape and sent it. And so all of a sudden I was like, I went to see the Swans Swans at the Mabuhay in San Francisco, and which is a small place to see somebody that loud and mighty. And it was just super interesting to me. It didn't make a difference to me whether or not the people in the audience had spikes and boots on or whatever. And the stuff that was traditional hardcore at that point, now in '86, you had bands like DRI who become more metal. Cro-Mags now playing shows with Motorhead. I saw Motorhead with GBH. I was okay with that. Tonally, in terms of, tone and timbre, I was totally okay with the whole metal crossover thing. It didn't feel dishonest to me. It felt okay. And then the weirder stuff, like I said, Swans, I just said Diamanda, I was completely all over that too. So the idea that now moving into my mid 20s, that I would still be, smash the state, man. It just felt dishonest to me. It wasn't, different things were happening in my life, in my head, in my heart. I don't want it to, but I'm super proud and happy. My guys who are still doing it, like Agnostic Front, because their music has evolved with them as well, but their realities are very different from mine. So, but I go to see them play when they play San Francisco. Love hanging out with, Stigma. If I can pay it forward by writing an article or review or something, I'm doing it. So, but yeah, I think your second date range makes the most amount of sense, because I'm looking at, cool, vibrant music begetting other cool, vibrant music, and I'm not nearly as impressed with the stuff that happened from '87 to '90. So.
Yeah, it's interesting that you mentioned '82. I think just by researching and kind of being in the hardcore myself, it seems like everything coalesced. Not to say that it abandoned punk, but became hardcore. Kind of really became like its own like thing around '82. From even what you just said, and then with '84 to '86, and it's funny because I've heard the same thing happen. Like listening to interviews with like Ian MacKaye and a few other cats that went kind of a different route, like around 84, 80 to 86. Even Bad Brains, they embraced kind of a more diverse, like heavy metal to other different things that they were. I mean, they were all really diverse, but they slowed it down and shows you how diverse they were.
Yeah.
It's interesting that it makes sense. I mean, like for me, when I got into this stuff, like I'm still listening to all the stuff that was around in the 70s and 80s, and then the stuff that was like that at the time. It's now called power violence, which some of the stuff that I've done have been called. I didn't even know about the term power violence until later, even though, yeah, I know Eric Wood, but I didn't know about that term until like much later, actually 2000s. And I just thought it was hardcore, like even the whole grindcore thing, that was from hardcore, and that was like kind of like the stuff that was in the same spirit of like the older hardcore. Some people would say it was like more aggressive, but to me it was the same spirit, fast, loud, and chaotic.
Yep.
But they were on some other stuff too in some ways, but it's interesting.
Yeah. So, and with the music and as well, I think that the seesaw, the gyre has turned, so that I find I went with me and some old guys, in other words, first generation cats go, oh shit, the Bad Brains are playing San Francisco, we gotta go. So we go to see Bad Brains at Slim's, and and they start heading for the bar. I go, what are you doing? They go, we're gonna get some drinks. They're like, we're not dealing with the pit. And they go, where you going? I go, where I rightfully belong.
In the pit.
I muscle through the crowd. I was going to stand right in the front. I can see some of these young guys thinking, oh, he doesn't know what's going to happen. It's like, yeah, I know what's going to happen. But it's because of me. That's what's going to happen.
Exactly. Because of people like you.
Yeah, right. So then they finish the song, and I like, yeah, I can feel like it. And my phone rings. It's on vibrate. I just, look, and it's the guys I came with. It's Booby, who used to drum for Anti-Warfare, and Chris Cherokee, who came out west to do the thing with Grateful Dead, but used to be MDC's roadie. And they're like, we're coming in.
I have to tell you this story to piggyback off of that. When I met Darren Peligro, he's one of my fave drummers.
Yeah.
I met him in Long Beach. He opened. He played my friend's store, and I got a chance to meet him. I was so happy. He was in the pit. He was still slam dancing.
Yeah, yeah, fuck that.
It's so cool.
Anything, It's like Biafra tried that shit and got his leg broken. It's like, but he's not the most physical guy in the world. That's like, I'm training 7 days a week. If I can't hang out with some guys in a mosh pit, I shouldn't be alive. Yeah.
It's fun. Oh,
So,
Mike Grimlin had something to say. The way I write music is simple. I mean, the way I write music is like simple 80s hardcore, but I've always thought about as you progress as a musician, a lot of stuff I'm sure gets more boring to play and you just don't feel it anymore. Ah, interesting
yeah,
point.
and for me, right, because I'm not a musician, right? I'm a lyricist and a singer. That's largely true, right? I mean, but our Whipping Boy lyrics have always been multi-layered and nuanced. But I at one point I knew I had to leave, where some guy was telling me, the problem with Whipping Boy is that you're not writing songs that matter to the kids. And this is the older guy who was telling me this. This guy was like, I don't know, 10 years older than me. And I go, what do you think the kids are concerned about? And I'm talking about the kids who wear derby jackets and Ben Davis jeans and, a fist fighting with cholos at lunch. And I go, man, that's not part of my reality. And that's why Muru Muru came out, Third Secret of Fatima. I was just thinking of different things. But what was happening is I had done Whipping Boy so long that I was stuck in kind of a jail.
Hmm.
Um, and I remember Whipping Boy's last few shows were actually Oxbow's first shows. And the first shows we did as Oxbow in London, there's a guy named, I think his name is Stevie Chick. I could be wrong about that. Things get fuzzy over time. He's a reviewer for NME and Sounds. And he critiqued the show, he was dead on. Everything he said was dead on. And the phrase he used was ham-handed theatricality. And that's what I got into, that kind of like Biafra influence, latter day hardcore thing. And I was not happy with it and didn't know how to express my unhappiness. And he put it into words, and I was like, okay, I, I'm not going to ruin Oxbow like this. I'm going to blank slate this. And the songs were written about very specific things. I'm going to go out on stage and I'm going to see what fucking happens. And I'm going to push it until something happens. And I think the very next time we played, I came probably pretty close to having a nervous breakdown on stage. And people were like, what the fuck just happened? And I was like, that's it. I don't care if there are 5 people in the audience. If I could keep doing that, perfect, because it was nuanced and complex, vocally as well as musically. And so I was like, it's all right. And there got a lot of guys I know who are in the hardcore who just view my time, the transit from Whipping Boy to Oxbow. It's like that's when Eugene lost his mind. So I had guys, one of these guys, Booby, who used to drum for Anti Warfare, he knew I was in Oxbow for years. I never pushed it. I was not like an Amway guy. You got to come see us play, man. Come see us play. Come see us play. Come see us play. I never said that. Finally, after like 18 years, he came to see us play. He's like, my God, you guys are great. I was like, yeah. You have to understand the elemental aspect of hardcore and punk rock to understand that we are direct, descendants. I mean, it's not. You understand beyond the brand what that music is about. And Bunwell started the same way. Bunwell was like, they said they were in love with a very specific type of first stage noise rock, right? So after Scratch Acid became Jesus Lizard, there were Mech Mensch, there was Naked Ray Gun, there was a Big Black, and said that it was different, not hardcore, but weird. And they said we could do something like that, but who are we gonna get to sing? And they said Eugene. And what was great about that is that I listened to all that stuff and liked it, but I never liked the vocals. And it was only because Albini was so distinctive in his vocal attack that he had a lot of imitators. So a lot of that stuff that was coming out of the Midwest was kind of this wised up, sardonic thing, and I just was like, everybody's using the same voice. I didn't like it. And I said, now, if you could take that, it's like the line from Hamlet. what would they, had they the motive and cue for passion that I have? If you could do it with my vocals, like where I'm just really like, I'm gonna blast through, like a uranium tipped bunker buster bomb, just drill through to what this means and how it makes you feel. It would be kind of cool, and that's what Buñuel is. Actually, talk about it just feels evil. I go, yeah, well,
It's cathartic. I think I used that on the last video
Yep,
too.
yeah.
People always want to say that things like that are evil, but like I like, as a performer myself, I like going off.
Yep.
Even when I was in Javelina, it was like you said, I don't care if it's 5 people or 5,000 people, you're gonna bring it no matter what,
Yep.
and it's a release. And I'll grant it, Javelina stuff is all over the place. I have stuff that's way more intense than that, but still, like I feel like even as a performer, like why not just go all out? Like it's fun, and that's what I even.
Chuck Dukowski told me. He said he had a great way. He goes, "Hey, you know what? One person, 3 people, 4,000. If there's one person there, it's not their fault. Nobody else showed up. So you play,
Exactly.
you play it like you mean it every time, but just stay home. I mean, that's it's weird, man. I don't walk out of a lot of shows. If I'm going and I'm there, and especially if I'm covering it for a publication. And I went to see the Chemical Brothers and New Order, and it was a strange bill because Chemical Brothers, I think, was opening for New Order. So I got to see Chemical Brothers. New Order was headlining, and they started taking some of the Joy Division tunes and doing them as like raved up,
Oh,
EDM.
no.
And I think lost control.
She lost control.
And I was like, hey, man, I got so angry. That's it. I'm gone. I'm ready. Fuck you guys, I'd interviewed the drummer before and got along well, and I felt bad because I was supposed to go backstage after and say, hey, but fuck that, man. Fuck that, So I see somebody in the comments said Ox. It was after the implement. I named it after the implement. It came to me in a dream. I knew I had to have an O in it and an X in it, and Ox-O was a bouillon cube. So I kept the Ox. And go, okay, the implement is for a team of oxen, 2 oxen. And I go, this is perfect. One is good, one is evil, but they're lashed together, as they are inside of many of us. So that's where the name came from.
Thank you for seeing that. For some reason, I didn't see the comments. There's another comment too. It says, "It's a weird, serene." Now I'm seeing it. It's a weird, strange, wonderful experience playing music live to that level, hitting the right notes and beats. But you also have to synthesize the madness and lose control. And he's just laughing. Yeah, I
Well,
get that.
the funny thing is, the first couple of shows that we played with Oxbow, I had effects on stage. I had keyboard triggered effects on stage. And I used to play violin a little bit and saxophone a little bit and keyboards and bass and all these things a little bit. I think I had these triggers and a little keyboard thing with tape on the keys so I could see them. And it was a drag, man. It was like literally Oxbow's first or second show, and I just couldn't, and I just ended up kicking it off to the side. I was like, I can't do these 2 things at once. God love the people who can. Good for them. It's enough for me with the microphone. So that was when a healthy decision was made. So
the thing is, you are the instrument, and it shows up in the way that you not only express yourself in the recordings, but I still want to see you live in person. But I've seen videos, and you exercise that. Even when even the pictures that I see of you, like, this guy is the instrument. Like, you use yourself as an instrument. And that's a trip.
Too is like looking at people who have been cauterized by like shitty music. And some guy, I'm playing a show at South by Southwest, and in the break between songs, some guy goes, "Buckwheat." All right. Now this is well after the Eddie Murphy thing.
Stupid.
And I just looked at him and go, I can see you, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like, you want to be part of the show. I'm glad to make you part of the show. Right? Because I mean, in other bands, people try to make believe like things are not happening that are happening, and I decided I want to stand. I want to stand. I used to tell my kids when they were fighting, they would compete in fighting. I go, stay on top of your feet. Don't be too far ahead of your feet or too far behind your feet. Stay on top of your feet. And I think about that with playing live shows. I'm on top of my feet. I am right here. The strange place is all around us right now, but in the center of this tornado, I'm right here. So I said, is there anything else you'd like to say before we continue with our show? And the guy shut his mouth, which was 100%
Yeah,
the right thing to
that's right.
do. Yeah.
Ah, that could have went ugly real quick.
Yeah, it's like, and the thing is, I got that old punk rock thing. People, you can say whatever you want to me. You can say whatever you want, and then I'm okay with it till you put your hands on me, and then there's gonna be a terrible thing. But
Hey.
during the course of a live show, if you reveal yourself to be an enemy of art, you're asking to be part of the show. That's you know. So
Man, and with that, I have to ask this. It's weird. Um, it seems like I said earlier, like a lot of the kids don't really today. Some of these, from what I've been seeing, it seems like a lot of the kids in the hardcore scene don't really associate themselves with punk rockers. Like, and I've seen even cats. I don't know if they're trolling, even mock a lot of. And granted, your generation really defined it, and I guess they consider me old too because, I'm kind of shortly, I guess, after that, and I considered ourselves being punk. We were punk rockers. Would you say that hardcore is a part of punk rock today? And not only that, um, oh my gosh, do you feel that the spirit of hardcore is still there? Like even with the new bands, I don't know how many, if you listen to new bands,
yeah,
after my friends turn me on the new bands because I don't even know. Like, and
yeah.
there's some cool stuff
Same
going on.
thing. People have to tell, and usually people are pretty good at telling me. I mean, for me, like I'll give you an example. Like I think Converge is a hardcore band. I love Converge, and I think they're a hardcore band, but not but they are, um, an evolved hardcore band. There's nothing about them that smells like 1981, 82. Um, but the angle of attack seems to me, and I remember the first time we played with them, the guitar player whose name I'm much more better friends with Nate, but the guitar player sort of was apologizing, like for like, I mean, I don't want to put words in his mouth, but he was kind of like, well, this is, and I was like, oh man, I love the idea of like polishing a mirror until it's so clear that you don't know it's a mirror, just really drilling down deep on the essence and the spirit of hardcore in a 10th generation. I love it. I love what you guys are doing, and it makes me really 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 happy. Like I feel about Agnostic Front, or I most recently saw the Cro-Mags play with Helmet, and I made it to two Helmet songs, and I'm like, okay, I'm out. But the Cro-Mags, it was the whole set, and it was fairly phenomenal because built into these guys' DNAs are everything that made the early stage so fruitful. So yeah, Kurt Ballou, thank you, Kurt Ballou. Man, my memory is shot. That's one thing about getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning. I'm so tired by 8:30 at night. I can't remember too much. But so like I think that, I mean, punk rock. Um, I you, you didn't ask, but I'm going to suggest this. I use hardcore more often than I use punk rock to describe my place in space, because the superset of punk rock was fine, but I never felt part of the punk rock community,
Hmm.
because my understanding of that punk rock community was in 1977 to 1980. These are people who went to Max's Kansas City, and they were there because they knew Mick Jagger was hanging out with David Bowie, was hanging out with Andy Warhol, and they could have their little punk fun. It was fun, you know. Um, you know, yeah, that was a good year, 2003, 2004. But hardcore were the people I was in vans with, the people in other vans. These are the people that were getting bombed at shows in Philly. These are the people that when Dead Kennedys played Staten Island, there was the riot. I mean, that's to me that's hardcore, and hardcore has informed much more of my identity. It's the lack of nihilism, philosophically speaking. If you're if you're already living on the streets or in your car, or my friend Dimitri from that band Shock was living in a garbage-strewn basement on top of a pile of garbage on the Lower East Side. There's not a lot of time for punk rock decadence, man. You're literally, this is a struggle for survival. Yeah, and a friend of mine said, "Hey man, don't you think we sold out? Because now we have houses and functioning lives and stuff like that." I go, no, 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 no. We this is what hardcore was supposed to deliver. Because though for a long time I used to wear a suit to work, I remember a friend of mine who was in the same position. He goes into a bar in Portland, and these punk rock guys come in, and some skinhead guy, and he's thinking he's scaring all these straight guys. And my friend pushes from his drink, goes, "Why don't you shut the fuck up?" And the guy was like, "Oh, you got to do something to me, old man." And he gets up and he lays him out and he goes, "I want you to tell your punk rock friends that you got knocked out by a guy in a suit." And he didn't, to his credit, he didn't give his bona fides. He didn't say, "I've been to this show, I've been there." He didn't say anything. And I remember a woman came to see Whipping Boy play in Virginia, and she was telling me, she was a few years older, and she was telling me about, "Oh yeah, I was hanging out with Johnny Thunders, and I was this back in my day." She was only about 4 years older, but she's doing, trying to sun me on all this, like, I was back. And I told myself at the time, this is so unattractive. I will never, ever do this, ever, like ever. And so, like, I've seen kids at shows with, like, I've never seen a kid with a Whipping Boy sticker, so or a logo on their jacket. But it's like I've never had the temptation to go, "Yeah, that's my friend's band. Yeah, we played shows with them. I don't need that kind of love." So I'm just like, "Cool, it's your thing now. Take care of it." But that's funny. It's funny. Yeah, you're right. I mean, punk rock is still largely a superset. If I'm talking to somebody who's really super straight, I call it punk rock, because they won't know what the fuck I'm talking about. But if I'm dealing with somebody who's maybe listened to some kind of music in the last 10 years, I'm okay saying hardcore, because it's a definitive genre right now. I can go to a record store, the few that still exist, and go to hardcore, and I can see not just the first generation or the second or third or fourth. I can see the current cats, and there's some out there that I've actually written down on the list that I want to see. Those guys, some Australian guys. What's that band called? I want to say Speed, but I know that's wrong.
Mm.
They had to push back their tour or something. So there are a few people I'm like, they got it. They got it. And I mean, keep in mind, '87. When was that? Sick of It All. I think probably they were the apotheosis of evolved hardcore. All right, lyrically, what is that lyric that I heard that stuck with me for the longest time? If it's them versus us, you can always count on me, or something like. I go,
That's pretty
that is,
cool.
yeah, that's the essence of this thing. So yeah, yeah, yeah.
Somebody had I think you answered one of them, but the other one said, "Why did you? What turned you off about the helmet set?"
Um, it's the same thing that turned me off when I went to see Gang of Four play. And
Oh,
I was a huge Gang of Four fan, and it was really Andy, so it was a gang of one and some side people, and Helmet was like Page Hamilton, and I don't know what happened to the rest of the band, and it was just kind of boring, man. It was just boring. I mean, I was never a super big Helmet fan to begin with. I thought they, in the post Nirvana scrum to sign anybody. I'm glad they made out and got their $3 million, but I was never super impressed with them.
and I think you answered this when I saw Oxbow in Berlin. I don't know what year, in 2003, 2004. I bought a double album. The gig of your performance was absolutely freaking intense.
Yeah, that was, if the show I'm thinking of is correct, it was in like a stainless steel cube. They had taken like this brushed aluminum and covered every single surface. The benches were brushed aluminum, the walls, the floors, and it was like we did it ended up being a 2 hour Oxbow show. And Oxbow is a physical show. I was drained afterward, and it was noteworthy. It was noteworthy, that show, because after the show, after we played 2 hours, this guy comes up to me and says, "Hey, man, that was a great show." And I was like, "Great." He goes, "Hey, you want to go to the bathroom with me for a bit?"
What the
And I,
hell?
that's, but I figured, well, maybe the guy had some narcotics. And I said, "Well, what do you got?" I'm like, he goes, "Well, maybe you could suck my dick." It's like, yo, bro. Hey, listen, just from the point of view of, I just did a 2 hour show. Don't you think it should be you who should be offering?
Oh,
And he's standing there with his girlfriend who's not heard any of this, right? So I'm kind of confused. This is like a group thing that you got going on. I said, I'll tell you what. Why don't you have her, service me? And if I'm not too tight, he's like, oh, he got his feelings hurt. He stalked off. And then later, he like sobered up and realized, oh my God, and apologized. I got, man, it's nothing to apologize over. But I did just do a 2 hour show, so fuck off with all that. So
crazy, man. Another cat was asking, regardless of the circumstances, will Oxbow release the rest of Love's Holiday?
Well, yeah, that means you know enough to know that that the session that gave us Love's Holiday also had like 12 more songs to it, all right, which was supposed to be released as Follow Me Now in Merry Measure. And I have to tell you frankly that I think whether or not this is released in any sensible way has everything to do with caused me to leave in the first place. All right. I mean, I'm a firm believer in, if you're releasing music, you owe it to the people you've released it to or who have released it for you to play it live. If I have no intent of playing it live, it doesn't make sense for me to release it. Um, but to play it live, certain things have to happen. And when I put together that Substack where I said I'm leaving, that was me expressing an opinion that I didn't think that things were going to happen were going to happen. I didn't think there would be an accounting. I don't think there would be an owning up. I don't think there would be an explanation. I didn't think there would be a mea culpa. I don't think there would be an apology. I didn't think there would be any of that. There would be no effort to, nothing but hoping it would just blow over. And I'm not a blow over guy. But strange things could happen. Strange things could happen. Right now, I mean, as far as I know, I want to give everybody enough time to do what they got to do. I'm busy in 2025 with Buñuel. So that's, and moving to Spain. I got all that stuff to do. But, I got the Whipping Boy record coming out this year, reissue. I also have this record called, this project called Leisure High with Bevan Kelly from Blechdom, which is weird electronica stuff. And I have Manjin out. So I got my hands full for this year. But I mean, hope springs eternal, man. I hope that the right things have to happen, because nobody wants to go out that way. And that, being able to do a farewell tour on the record is called Follow Me Now in Merry Measure would be pretty perfect. But as things stand right now, I don't, what we can forgive and how we forgive. It's a complicated science, but my methodology, and I was asked about this by somebody before. I said, man, I'm a discloser. I do some fucked up shit. I'll tell you about it. I mean, that's why I wrote the memoir. Tell you about it. Tell you about the shitty stuff I've done. So, however, I can't reasonably be expected to disclose about the illegal criminal shit I've done, because only a fool does that, right? So yeah. So I kind of understand that it's kind of complicated, but whatever. And all, it takes some tact and some stones to do, but I think it's doable. So I don't know.
Man, here's another comment. It says, I hate clarifying. I hate to clarify hardcore punk versus just saying hardcore nowadays. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about too. because most of the youngsters now only know the term hardcore in reference to more of the beats down stuff. That's where
I
I'm coming from.
see. Yeah.
And, that's where I'm coming from with that too. And another cat, um, or you could address. Oh, was that Mikey saying the same thing? Oh no, that was a. You could address that if you want, and then we have another comment from Mikey Gremlin. Actually, we have two more comments.
Well, I see the one,
Also,
the strip club in the, I remember this, the Birmingham. That was one of the first Supersonic, the people, Lisa and Jenny did Supersonic. That was one of their first shows, was at the strip club. But yeah, the weirdest show we played had to be in Krefeld, Germany, in a guy's living room. And we were going to ditch him, once we figured out it wasn't a real venue. It was just a
that's
guy's living room.
funny.
But he paid a sizable amount of money for us at the time. And of course, it was his living room. So it was just him. And then it was him and maybe like one other guy, and then the band Apartment 3G, who had a record out called "Shit Nobody Likes," and they were more disappointed than we were, but I don't think they were getting paid the same. So that was one of the stranger places that we played. We
Man,
we played Death Traps in Thessaloniki. The club was in Greece. Was completely terrifying. It was one entrance, one exit, and it was in a stone basement. And I go, man, if a fire breaks out here, I actually told the band, if you see me on those stairs, you'd be good to follow me, because because I'm not dying. Fire. I'm elbowing people out of the way. I'm not helping anybody get out of here.
this one cat says the bad part about saying hardcore. Oh, my bad. The bad part about saying hardcore is after crossover, it's a whole different genre.
Yeah.
I say I love hardcore, but I don't like much heavy music or metal. But I have something to say to this too, because I got into all that stuff too, and some of it, the more punkier side of it, I really dug. And even like, I mean, there was already bands kind of playing heavier like that. I mean, Discharge did it. Even Bad Brains and Black Flag played heavy. But I understand what you're saying. But then there's what people are calling power violence now. They included some of the heavier stuff, but just like exaggerated the hell out of
Yeah.
it and played it even more intense, you
Yeah.
know. And then bands from the UK like Pink Turds in Space. But yeah,
But
I'm curious what
but
you
I'm
think.
looking at these guys, and the odd occasion when I get to go to go out and see bands that are not in my neck of the woods play, and I'm looking for the same things that I look for in '77, which are like, do you mean it? You
Mm,
know, and if you don't mean it, or you're doing some kind of, you know, apey mimicry, then I'm whatever. Cool. I'm glad it pays for you, but I'm not interested. I mean, and I'm not interested in a large amount of predictability either. Right. I mean, there's a great line from Black Flag, from that song. I can't remember the name of the song. From the start, I see the end. It's like, if from the start,
wow. Yep.
if I could see the end, man. Look, I don't have a lot of time left on this planet, so I'm going to use it wisely. And if I can figure out your 3-minute song in 10 seconds, why would I? Why for the rest of the show? Seriously, man. So, but whatever. I mean, I got to also realize that sometimes some of this stuff is not. It's just not for you. And that's why I never pushed Oxbow on my hardcore dudes who, like, well, who were like roadieing for MDC and were all about to, never pushed it. I had a friend, she's a photographer, she's playing bass and flipper for a period of time, and she was like really pushing for us to do a lot of shows together. I was like, that's okay. I don't think the guy, Ted, I don't think he's all that in. This is not, because Flipper was somebody who I thought would have comfortably evolved out of hardcore, but then they come back and they got to make money, and it gets weird. It's like having a dream, waking up and trying to go back to that dream. It never works.
One
It's
thing,
always hard.
weren't they kind of an anomaly too, because they played a lot of their songs really slow and like, didn't that irritate the hell? I liked
Oh man,
Flipper.
they were so great. They were so great and crazy, and the fact that they got any purchase at all. I first time I saw them, I go, these guys suck. They suck. Because I was expected, like, like hardcore, man. But then I started to think about it, and I kept thinking about it, and I kept thinking about it, and I was like, oh, of course they suck. They intend to suck. So Oh my,
to piss off all the
yeah,
hardcore kids.
they're geniuses. You know, they're giving each other instruments and dropping the stuff on stage, and just it was it was. But if half the band dies from a heroin overdose, bro,
Oh,
you gotta start another band, man. That's just the deal. I mean, we've been approached by people, like a couple of guys say, I can play 50 Oxbow songs. Like what I'm getting what they're suggesting. Getting a new guitar player or something, but it's not my jam. Whatever. Um, I haven't felt a pressing need to play an Oxbow song since July. I mean, you got to realize we were three shows away from playing support for Metallica at the Hellfest in France. It was it
wow.
was yeah. That's who it was. The bassist from Frightwig. I'm sorry, I should have mentioned her name. Um, but Rachel. But you know, I don't know, man. It would have been great. It's been great playing in front of 20,000 people. It's always a kicker. But I've lost some shows. I Minor Threat's last show, Whipping Boy was booked on it, and Steve's wife, he was getting married 4 weeks now. She threw a bitch. They didn't want him going off playing any shows. So,
That's
yeah, that's right. Yeah, it should be a genre. It tends to suck. ITS. Yeah, and a lot
that's funny.
of same thing.
No Trend's awesome.
Yeah, Flipper and No Trend were like part of the same thing.
Detox
So yep,
too.
yep,
From yeah,
yep.
man. What's up, Mikey? Oh man. Hey, what's up? Dude, that's the homie from Texas. That's the homie, man. What's up, Brave Captain Cook? I know
Oh,
that cat.
when Whipping Boy played Texas for the first time, Austin, we stayed with the Butthole Surfers, right?
Oh wow.
And they gave us their demo tape. This is before they put a record out. And as we are driving away, I'm listening to it, and they're like, man, this this stuff, it's great, but with a name like that, they'll never make it.
Man.
I also told like the Beastie Boys to their face that they were never gonna make it. So I'm batting 1,000, man. But we were friends, and they would tell me, "Oh, we're gonna kick Kate out, and we're gonna be a hip hop group." I was like, you're never gonna make it."
Man.
Okay, I was wrong. So, yeah,
That's crazy, man. Talk about a small world. That's the thing I like about the old hardcore thing too, because it was like more spontaneous and chaotic. And I could tell when I feel certain bands are contrived, but that's just me. But I feel the same spirit is in a lot of like high energy music, whether it be like extreme metal or free
yep,
jazz or like avant-garde classical music,
yep,
like just that
yep,
again, that's that cathartic.
yep, yep.
I can't stay away from it.
Yeah, yeah. I,
You know,
I did meet the big boys, but it was weird, man. It was a little bit weird, the circumstances under which, because I had a great time when I went to Austin with Whipping Boy. Even though Whipping Boy, we weren't having a great time with each other, I had a great time being in Austin and meeting all those cats in Austin. But somehow, when they got to San Francisco, there was a little bit of a prick thing happening, right?
oh,
Because they
no,
had been invited by Tim Yohannan, and KPFA was all over their nuts. So when they came, and they were a couple of years, everybody, excuse me, was a couple of years older, and they could actually really play. Like Alshavitz was a great fucking drummer. But there was a little bit of an attitude, like which I didn't. But Randy, from the Big Boys,
that's
he
good.
was great, always great, and Gary Floyd, who has just passed on, later Sister Double Happiness, formerly the Dicks, he was fucking just such, his voice was just so beautiful, so great. He was a phenomenal guy, always was, maintained. High Point, he and I sang on a Dead Kennedys record together, and that was really, if the Dead Kennedys did nothing else, just put me in a room where I could sing with him was great. So
That's so cool, man.
yeah,
Man, did you ever meet? Speaking of Texas, Christian Airhater or Christian Anarchy from the Hates? I know they're from
no,
Houston.
never
Man,
did.
and then it's funny. Didn't wasn't DRI from Texas too originally, and they moved to San Francisco?
Yeah, and they were the ones, but they did some incredible act of legerdemain. Like they came out with that whole MDC the Dicks, you know, all the crew of guys from Austin who came to San Francisco, they were part of it. And but they pretty quickly turned and started doing that crossover stuff. And I loved it because Maxim Rock and Roll and Johanna so badly want to shit on them because
Wow.
they went some version of mainstream in their mind. But they had reached escape velocity, and I was friends with one of the guys in the band for a period of time, and I went to see them play, and it was like packed out, and fucking they just gave a great show. I was not a big fan of them on music, but it was a great live show. It was a hands down live show. I wouldn't have liked them in '81. But when I saw them, I think it was the late '80s, and it was great. It was great.
Man. Well, heck, I know you got to get up early. And if anybody else has anything to say, please rock that madness. MDC guys are in Austin and playing a lot
Oh,
now.
I love. I've seen him over the years showing up. He's involved in the interesting way. Every time I see him, it makes me happy. So, yeah, I can't think of anybody from the old days who I still see that I got gripes with. No, there's one guy. I'm not gonna mention his name, but that has more to do with Cash, who I'm not so crazy about. And he was never a band guy; he was always a label guy. But other than that, generally, I see people from the old days. I'm pretty happy to see him. So.
Yeah. Well, you guys paved the way for us, man. I mean, I still feel like I'm always calling hardcore punk no matter what, but I understand. It's kind of the way that you explained it too. You know, like, I guess within our circles, we already know what
Yep.
it is. So it's like, okay, we say hardcore,
Yep.
but
Well, you know
for
what's
these
funny?
youth,
It was funny. So when was I? 3 years ago, I was touring a lot, and I kept seeing all these guys from New York hardcore, uh, like in France, in Italy. I think was like, what the fuck are you guys doing here? Portugal, and they all said the same thing. And I go, what's that? They go, can't get old in America, man. So if you want to know, he said, all I got to do to live here comfortably is be able to speak the language. And so I asked each speak Italian up, but yeah, see, I was like, all right, man. And so they're like at least 5 guys I know from New York hardcore, and they're doing the same shit they would have been doing on the Lower East Side. Their rent is just in Bologna or in Rome or in Paris even. So one guy just wrote me from Porto, Portugal. He was like, oh, we're gonna be neighbors soon, man. I go, well, not really, but closer than we are now. He goes, I'm coming. I see you got a pool there. I was like, yeah, come on by, hang out. Yeah, we saw Jason. We saw Jason in last summer on the tour, on the Oxbow tour. We saw him in Berlin. We played a solo show, and then we did the Mr. Bungle thing, and Jason Honey from Social Unrest came. But I never think Jason Honey from Social Unrest, because he was, but for me, Jason Honey was in Grim Reality, and the singer for Social Unrest that I remember was Cretan Chaos, who was the first singer for Social Unrest. But yeah, it was nice seeing Jason. He's doing well, doing well.
Brave Captain Cook, the homie says, y'all rule, big ups. And shouts to you, man, you and your family. Tell Coyote I said, what's up? Um, Mikey Gremlin says, Texas music in general, I feel, has always had kind of a more raw and energetic approach to music, even in genres like hardcore, honky tonk, and more. Texas music is different for
Yep.
sure.
Yeah, I had a great time. I had a great time there, and we played a show that turned into a riot at Southwest. The bouncers tried to say, "You got to put your pants on." I go, "The fuck I will." And so they stop playing. I go, "Fuck I will." So this huge fights break out, and I'm walking down the hall with still no pants. I refuse to put my pants on for the rest of the evening. And some guy stops in the hallway. It was big manly fucking dudes. I go, okay, who's? And he's like, King Coffee, Jeff. I go, oh shit, I didn't recognize. Look at you, you're a man now. I felt like the oldest grandfather, because when we stayed with them, King Coffee was like this gangly little kid. He was maybe like a year younger than me. We went eyeglass shopping, sunglass shopping together, had a great time. But now, he's now, dude's been working out. He's an adult male now. I was so happy to see him. And the roles were weirdly reversed because he's now all like macho and like a dude, and I'm like walking down the hallway with no pants. Wait, man. Hi, my kid is
great time. Great time to join this live. Mikey Grimmon says this was fun to watch and talk with y'all. Thanks for putting putting me on this to this, Dave. Yeah, Dave. I've been calling him. Like, forgot his name. David Cook. Yeah.
There you go. There's that kid of mine who's listening, is watching. There she is at like a year old.
So cute, man. That's so cool, man. Man.
Yeah, that's what I said, Night Flesh, exactly. I thought they were never going to make it with that name. But listen, I've also said stuff like the internet. It's a flash in the pan. But you got to understand, I was there when the internet was first like happened, right? Like I was working in the defense industry in 1986, and it was DARPANET, and it was miserable to use. It was miserable to use. I thought it was going to be like CB radios. I didn't think it was going to allow us to do what. Come on. So the Beastie Boys, don't follow my style, kids.
Man. Hey, Eugene, I have to ask this. Are any of your kids involved in music or in bands or anything? And what do they think about their dad being like a hardcore punk rock legend?
Well, you could ask Lola right now. She's watching it. She just left.
Oh, that's your daughter. Hey, what's up? I see Robinson. I saw it all together. Right on, man.
I was never super aggressive about. One thing I was aggressive about was like, I didn't want to play stupid kid music in the car. So, but it didn't have to be hardcore. I listened to anything. So I always tried to make it be cool music. And I just found I used to make CDs for them, So, exactly, Night Flesh. Crypto, it's going nowhere. No. So I tried to keep the music, but I've not been aggressive about the music. And now at this point, what the tables have turned, where I'm like, you do not let your father get old. If there's stuff that you think I should listen to, you tell me. Do not let me die out here. So they've introduced me to one name I remember is Anderson .Paak, that guy who I've never. Yeah, man. I was like, hey, cool. So they are now in a position to turn me on to stuff, and I'm not pushing them to. Oh, Brain Tentacles. That was Bruce from Yakuza, my buddy, and he just said, "Hey, you got to sing on this." I was like, "All right, I'm glad to do it." So, and I think we even did it live once. It was really nice, fun. I loved it. Actually, Oxford played with them in Chicago at their 20th anniversary party in Chicago last summer. It was great.
Nightfish says, "Tell me something new you think won't last, so I can invest."
Oh, I told crypto, but
that's right, crypto.
But I got crypto too because I don't trust my own instincts anymore. I don't,
What was it? It's weird as shit, but that's cool.
And that's the thing. I mean, people say, "Hey, will you sing stuff?" I go, I have 2 stipulations, 3. I go, 1, there's got to be a budget. I don't do shit for free.
That's right.
2, there's got to be a video, because way more people have seen all the videos I've been in than have ever listened to my music. So that way I'm guaranteeing it's getting to be seen. So it's got to be a budget. It's got to be a video. And I got to like it. So those 3 things. So like right now, I think the guys from that band Soul Glow want me to sing something on their next record.
Oh, that's going to be awesome. I love that band. I saw them with Zulu, my homeboys in Zulu.
Yep.
And that was one of the baddest shows, man. Like, they killed it, man.
Good. Yeah, everybody.
I gotta hear this.
I was like, "Hey, you like these guys?" And people were like, "Oh, shit, yeah, you gotta do it. You gotta do it." So I was like, "All right," but I still have my rules, And in this instance, I said, "Can I write the lyrics too?" So I think they're thinking about it. So if I'm gonna sing it, I'd rather sing my own words, and if there's a video, then I'm in. So I think they're trying to decide. Who knows? I said yes, but I got certain things I like to do in a certain way I like to do it. So the song they sent or the stuff they sent me, I liked a lot. So
Yeah, man, that's so cool. Man, I understand the writing lyrics because if you're writing the lyrics, like it, I mean, like you feel it more when you wrote something. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah. I've
you
I've done a couple. I did one for what is that Italian band Pier Paolo Capavia used to be in his first band. I can't something man like uninitiated. I can't remember. And he actually said, "Listen, this guy is a well-respected poet. He did a book on Raina Rilke, Maria Rilke, you know. And if you could, and I read the words, I was like, yeah, you know what? I'm okay. I'm fine. I can sing this. I'm not going to be a prick about this. I could sing it. So, so I did the song for them, somebody else's. But generally, yeah, it means it's easier for me to sing my own stuff. So
that's so cool, man. I mean, you're pretty diverse, man. Like seriously, like I've heard, man, there's that I can't remember the name of that band. How could I? What's wrong with my mind? It starts with a K, and I actually shared it in the story,
Ken
and
Mode,
it was just, huh?
Ken Mode.
Nah, it was something where it was like had all these weird changes, and you're talking about life and death.
Oh, you're talking about the Israeli group. Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, that was. I love that. That
I
stuff
can't.
was awesome.
No, you're. I can't pronounce the name either, man. I don't know what those guys are. I can't know how to pronounce it, but yeah. So I love those guys. That was really fun to do. You know.
That's a trip, man. And um, shoot, man, that's amazing, man. Oh my god,
Yeah.
man. So if when you're touring, man, let me know. I got to come out and see you if you're gonna be playing in LA.
Yeah.
You know, like I'm in LA County, Long Beach area.
Okay.
You know, I'd love to come and see you play, man. You know,
You,
especially before you move to Spain.
you missed Oxbow there last time we played, so yeah, you got
Yeah.
yeah.
I
So
was like, man.
well, Boonwell will be there sometime in the summertime. Who knows? But yeah, we'll play. I mean, I'm still playing music live, so you know, when I stop doing jujitsu, maybe I'll slow down because I won't be in such good shape. but just keeping me in fine fettle for playing live shows. 51 minutes, shit, man. I'm doing 2 hours of jujitsu. I can handle 51 minutes on stage. So
Amazing. Well, heck, man, I know you got to get up
yeah,
early. So here's the thing. You got to give us some words of wisdom. You know how I do every time at the end of this, man. You know, like, I like what you said the last time, but even if you say it again, that's fine
what did
too.
I say last?
But whatever, you said live something. Don't
You
die.
don't
That's
die.
what you said.
I'll give you one. Some guy, there was some confusion about something I was supposed to buy, and the guy, I said, no, the guy, he gave me a sweatshirt. He thought I was going to buy it. I said, it was a gift. He goes, no, but I got the money. So I said, okay, I'll buy it. How do I buy it from you? And the guy goes, well, you go hit his page. So we walk through it on the phone, and up comes a payment page. And he says, yeah, you can click on it. It's a sweatshirt. Charging me $60 for a sweatshirt. I'm like, all right, bro, $80 for a sweatshirt. I was like, but it's a good cause. Yeah, I'm helping you out. And he goes, oh, and there's a section there for a tip. I go, tip? Okay, I got a tip for you. Don't drink and drive. That's my boy. Your fucking tip. Don't drink and drive. You know, that's my you spend that wherever you want, son.
Just don't spit out. Oops.
So those
Oops.
are my words of wisdom to close with, you know.
Man. Well, thanks again, man. I know you're busy, and I really appreciate you like rocking madness with us again. And tell cats, excuse me, you got me cracking up. Tell cats where like to get your books. Also, like when you guys are gonna be on tour, or just anything that like your site, your site, or anything that you want to tell
Okay.
cats.
So Boonwell right now has a Bandcamp page. You can get any Boonwell stuff to the Bandcamp page, but the record's out on Skin Graft in the States. If you're overseas, anywhere else overseas, it's Overdrive, record label out of Milan. For the books, Feral Press, Feral House publishers, they're the ones who published the memoir. The fight book, as a HarperCollins, I don't know what those guys are doing. You can still get that now used on Amazon, and Amazon is reliable. They pay. So you don't. I don't know what the fuck Jeff Bezos is doing politically, but at least he's sending me checks. So
Heard that.
that's a good. So the book, and then the Substack is called "Look What You Made Me Do," a title we used well before Taylor Swift stole it. So that a good way. And I closed down the Oxbow store. So pretty soon I'm gonna have, if you follow me on Facebook or on Instagram, I'm gonna have periodic sales. Like I just sold, I had a bunch of I'm cleaning stuff out to ship, and I had a bunch of these rash guards, which have jujitsu rash guards. It's got tight lycra, and it says Old Man Jiu-Jitsu on it, and it's got my face on it. So so periodically I'll be selling stuff, but I'm hating to go to the post office. So generally, if you see a sale to the Instagram page, load up, because it's I'm not messing. If I can't sell it, I junk it. So it
Man,
hurts to do that sometimes, but man, I got to travel lighter. So.
man, well, thanks a lot for joining. Hey, we got Dave Branscombe, man, the homie. We interviewed him too, man. Shouts to
Nice,
that brother, man.
nice. All right.
Amazing drummer.
I'm glad you asked, and I'm glad to do it. I follow your page, and I'm all about it. So,
Man, it means a lot. It really means a lot, man. And shoot, man, I wish and pray the best for you. And man, I got to see you before you go to Spain. No,
yeah,
I remember you said that last year, and I didn't realize. I'm like, wow, it's that time.
that time.
When you said that.
House is finished. I mean, like I said, interior designer has to do things like put in beds, so I got someplace to sleep. But otherwise, yeah, we're done. So.
Man, well, heck, man, I know you got to get up early, and thanks for taking the time. I really appreciate it, and have a great tour, bro. Like, seriously, man. And, if you want, send me the dates, and I'll post them on my page just to let cats know, like, where you're going to be, no matter where it is in the world. This, to me, it's like, it ain't just, we're not just doing this for America. We're doing this for everybody around
Well,
the
I tell
world.
you,
I mean,
this I'm going to make it a two-step. Go to the Substack today, which is a kind of obituary for Marian Faithful, and at the end of it, you have 15 shows that Buñuel is doing, all listed there. I mean, they do them European date format, so you're looking at the date going August. No, it's not August. It's April and February. So right at the end of it, I give everything you need to know. So.
send me that way, man. Substack, I got to remember that.
Yeah. Look,
But, man.
Look what you made me do. Hey, I'm shocked you don't subscribe. I'll send it. I'll send it to you.
I didn't even know about. I didn't even know about that. I seriously didn't know about the Substack.
Oh,
But now I know.
Eugene S. Robinson, the Substack. You just type it in Google. Look what you made me do. It comes right up. So
For sure, man. Man, thanks a whole lot, man. Seriously.
okay, cool.
Well, you guys. Oh man, my bad.
Later, man.
Peace,
Bye-bye.
brother. Thanks a lot, man.
Bye-bye.
God bless. All right, you guys. We have another one, man, and this was really cool. Thank you guys for coming out and joining Eugene and I for this episode and series of Black History of Rock and Roll for Black History Month. I do series, this series. This is the second annual one. I also do, our month, our Black History of Rock and Roll month in November as well, with a bunch of interviews. So hey, we really appreciate you guys coming out and checking out what we do. And with that, I'm going to sign out. Black History of Rock and Roll, Black History of Rock and Roll, Black History of Rock and Roll. And peace and blessings to you. Blessed may I will woman feskadu sahadu. I'm like, I mean, glory to the Most High.